Nick Davis, owner, director of the Warwickshire School of Hypnotherapy, and today's video is about myths about hypnosis and trance. Okay, so I was watching a few different videos recently, and I won't mention any names, but different people talking about hypnosis, hypnotherapy, what they think hypnosis is, what they think trance is. And I found there was quite a few discrepancies about what so-called experienced people in the field understand about hypnosis, hypnotherapy and trance, and a lot of it's not true. So I was trained in hypnotherapy in 2006. I'm now in my 20th year, 2026. I've been doing hypnotherapy for a long time. I also did stage hypnosis. I found out I had a real good skill for hypnosis, rapid hypnosis, stage hypnosis, and hypnosis for entertainment. And I immediately after I'd finished my course started to do shows. I started with house parties and gatherings, social gatherings, birthdays and things like that, and eventually I did professional shows, which I'm grateful. I had a couple of regular shows, 3 monthly, I can't remember what they call it when you have it every 3 months, residency or something like that, in Leamington, and one in Wellingborough near Northampton. I also did shows for the British Army over in Germany, and my last show was at Warwick University, which was 2019 when I retired. And one of the reasons for retiring is because my work is mostly based in PTSD and trauma. Some people couldn't sort of make the difference between the fun hypnosis shows and trauma work, so I decided to retire and leave that part of my career behind, because I wanted to focus on, the medical profession, scientists, academia, and getting blast accepted, which is all over the world mostly now. So, I've got a vast amount of experience with hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And I'm just going to make a couple of distinctions. So there's one thing that people say is, I've heard that some people saying that trance isn't useful or helpful in hypnosis. I would massively disagree with that. Trance is one of the most important things, especially for trauma work and PTSD work with the deeper stuff. And one of the issues, and this is something I saw, this is what makes me chuckle about people say they're good at hypnosis or hypnotherapy. I actually watched a very experienced hypnotherapist working with a client, and it's on video, and the client spontaneously put themselves into trance. So there's no induction needed, and they were actually teaching a class at the time, and then they took the client out of trance to do a hypnotic induction to take them back in. I was like, why didn't you just utilise the trance that was always there? If the client's in trance, you could deepen it if you want to. There's no real need to. You don't need, contrary to popular belief, you don't need massively deep states to get the client to make profound changes and to talk to the deeper parts of their unconscious mind. That's a myth, unless you've got people who have a lot of sabotage going on, say they're analytical or very critical. But there are other techniques that you can use to do that. And the other thing as well is, I would hypothesize that trance is more important than hypnosis, because when a client is aware that they're going to be hypnotized, there's elements of being out of control, there's elements of anxiety and things like that, whereas you don't need any of that. I find working with trance is a much smoother way of working with clients and utilizing the states they already have, so it's working with them rather than make it artificial and things like that. Another thing that this person said was that hypnosis can't make you do anything you don't want to do. So in the notes, I'm just going to put a video in of Darren Brown, who hypnotised somebody to shoot Stephen Fry dead on stage. It's a very well-known act that he did, and I'm going to put a couple of the links to that. So if you're training with somebody who doesn't understand hypnosis and trance fully, and also has that belief that hypnosis can't make you do anything against your will. In fact, I remember a famous NLP trainer saying that somebody said to him, would you use hypnosis to rob a bank? And he just turned around and go, no, because it's not a really efficient way of doing it. He said, I'd buy a replica gun or something. Not that he'd do that. I'm not saying he would do that, but he was just saying it's not a very useful way of, getting people to do those things. And certainly when you do stage hypnosis I remember one stage hypnosis, I when I was first starting, I buddied up with a couple of experienced therapists and went on the road with them and did hypnosis shows with them as a kind of a duo to really learn my trade. And I found out, it was a lot better than I thought it was at the time. I was put into some really kind of deep water situations, but I learned a lot. And I remember one skit that this person did was he got a person who supported a, I won't mention any names or anything, but he got a person who supported a football team. And if you know about football in the UK, we're fanatical about it, or a lot of people in the UK. So to support another team, is just a no-no. And he actually hypnotised this guy and got him to sing the kind of club song of their opposition team. And they were singing it all night, and their friends couldn't believe it, this, that, and the other. So it's actually a myth. And if what I would suggest is, if you're training with somebody who's teaching you hypnosis and hypnotherapy, it would be a good idea to work with somebody that knows the kind of pitfalls and the things that can happen. Because the problem is if somebody is very suggestible, you need to use very clean language and make sure that you're not dropping things in. Like one of the things I say to my students when they're first starting is, if they're working with, it's a safe environment on there, they're working with different people and this, that, and the other, but they'll be doing something and then they'll go, oops. And I'll just stop them immediately and I'll say, what would you do if you were having operations, say, on your hand, your shoulder, with local anaesthetic, and your surgeon went, oops? I said, obviously, you go into a state of anxiety or panic and think something was really wrong. So I hope this video is helpful. It's not there to bash anybody. It's just to really, trying to move the industry forward in terms of, hypnosis and hypnotherapy and trance are very, very useful tools, but it's about working with somebody that, that's what I say to people. I wouldn't listen to somebody who's just done stage hypnosis the same way I wouldn't listen to somebody who's just done hypnotherapy. One of the things that I, just because of the way my mind works, is one of the things I wanted to do was study with somebody that could teach me the relaxotherapy, you call it, permissive guided hypnotherapy inductions and things like that, which are very useful, have their place. But also someone that can teach me the rapid stuff. I would never do rapid stuff in a clinical setting. That's more about the person's ego, and that's something that's more akin to kind of entertainment and things like that. The only time I would use it would be in an emergency situation, which I've done previously when I've worked with people in having dentistry work, medical procedures, things like that, where there's a very short amount of time that you've got to work with that person, so you set things up. And it would be a reinduction, not the first time. If you're doing inductions like that for the first time, it's more about your ego rather than looking after the client. One of the things, I teach hypnotherapy and our blast technique. The client comes first. The client's health, safety, security, and all of that comes far beyond anything that we do. So that's where we start. But also working with somebody that teaches you about working with natural trance states, how to spot them. We naturally have trance states all day long. When you're driving, you go into a trance state. When you're reading a book, you go into, apologies about my phone. When you're reading a book, you go into a trance state. When you're driving on a motorway, you go into a trance state. You're actually safer in those trance states, I believe, than actually being put into a state of hypnosis, because sometimes the person who's in the state of hypnosis, it changes the relationship. They're relying on the hypnotist to keep them safe. So obviously that's great if you're working with someone that keeps you safe. But trance states, I find, are very much safer to work with a client, because the client has their own health and safety that they're looking after unconsciously already. So for me, it's a more fluid, it's a more natural state, and we tend to get better results. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in training with me, go to www.wsoh.co.uk, Warwickshire School of Hypnotherapy. I'm going to be running my next hypnotherapy course in June. I'm going to do one online and a intensive as well, so look out for those dates. I'm probably going to do a course on a shorter course on trance versus hypnosis, how to use natural trance states. If you're interested, just pop a comment in and I'll get back to you and let you know. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, give us a like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care, guys.